we go. Excellent. So we got a lot to cover. And literally I go places and they think that Tennesseans all live in places like this. Well, my cabin is a little bit bigger than that, but it's almost that. And I live up on a mountain. And how many of y'all's family are originally from Tennessee? So there's a few of us that are Tennesseans. And as we look back at our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and I had the opportunity of knowing two of my great-grandparents, one until I was in my 20s and one until I was in my 30s. And they did natural remedies. The old folks did. They didn't have the money to go to a doctor. And usually it was grandmas who took care of people, but granddads did also. And they used just natural remedies. And let's see here. I mean, these are herbs that you use in the kitchen. So y'all are used to using those herbs. So just like yesterday I said, how many of y'all haven't ever done hydrotherapy? Then you've never taken a bath. Well, if you haven't used these herbs, then, I mean, everybody's used some of these herbs in cooking. And so you've used herbs. Yes, maybe for taste, but also there's medicinal benefits. Let's see if it's there. Yes, I had this guy call me one time. If you ever heard of Del Rio, we call it Dario. And this old farmer guy calls me from Dario, and he goes, Walt, I need to tell you something. I said, yes, sir. You listen to people who are older than you, right? They got information. They got a few more years on you. And he says, I got my diabetes under control. I said, you do? What'd you do? He says, well, went out to eat, and I noticed I didn't have to use my medicine like I did when I checked my glucose. I said, well, what'd you do? He says, well, I got deciphering. He says, went out to eat, and he said, what'd they eat different? He says, well, I had some pasta, and what was different that I don't normally do? Well, it was heavy in basil. He says, I got basil growing on my farm. He says, I just went out and started eating 2-3 pieces leaves of basil every day. He said, my diabetes is totally under control. Don't use no medicine no more. Isn't that amazing? It's amazing. And it's not normally that easy. But it worked for this guy. Here's some more. How can you use herbs? They can be in tea form. They can be extracts. They can be capsules. They can be essential oils, poultices, fomentations. So you've got your bulk herb that you may have. Who's done mullein? Mullein is the best herb for the lungs. Excellent herb. It grows here. It will start. You can start harvesting it probably in the end of February here, 1st of March, depending on your frost and all. And it will go all the way into December probably here. And you hang it like tobacco and dry it out. And it is phenomenal for pulmonary issues. So you can use that herb where you make a tea. You make a poultice. We talked about that yesterday. Mary Lou used it for breast cancer when she had breast cancer. Used it as a poultice. You can put it in capsules, grind it up and put it in capsules. Or you can take it to where it lasts longer or where you don't have to spend as much time making a tea. So let's say that it's summertime and you're picking tomatoes, and those tomatoes you just put up in the shelf and you can pull them out anytime you want to. Yes? What do you got to do? You got to put them up. And so if you want to put up your herbs, an herb will last, according to herbalists, 6 months you'd like to have it used, but definitely a year you're going to probably have good nutrition. It's not that they go bad, they just start losing potency. And so you just have to use more of to get that phytochemical. So to put them up, you can do it two ways, either extracts or tinctures, or you can do essential oils. Well, to put it up in extracts, you use vegetable glycerin. And you want at least 60%. I personally like 65 to 70%. Less than 60, you can have some pathogen growth. I like 70. I'm good and safe. It's an easy 7-to-3 ratio. If you get it too sweet, too much, it gets real sweet because vegetable glycerin is sweet. And you use, say, 7 parts glycerin, 3 parts distilled water. Mix it together. You're mixing oil and water, so you got to stir it for a while. And then you just mix. And so what you'll do is you'll take your plant material, and you can put it in a pint jar, quart jar, whatever you want. And so you'll take it, and I like every herb's different. And you've got to, let's say you have hawthorn berries. Anybody ever done hawthorn berries? Hawthorn berry is the best herb for the heart. Phenomenal results you get. It works like 3 different types of blood pressure meds. I had a guy, his EF was, what was his ejection fraction? It's 15. It was 15. And he started using hawthorn berry, and he went to the VA in Johnson City, and his cardiologist kept telling him, you need to take these meds, you keep taking these meds, and his EF kept doing better and better. And he'd say, I'm just going to take my hawthorn berry. Well, one day, she had a little time, and she thought, well, I'm going to prove him wrong. That hawthorn berry is no good. And so she started looking, and as she started studying, no, hawthorn berry was doing the same thing that the drugs she wanted him to take. And so she calls, and he's not home yet because he was going back to Newport from Johnson City. And she called him and says, Mr. So-and-so, call you get home. And so he calls her, Doc, what you worried about? And she said, do I need to go to a handheld? And she said, did you fill the prescription? And he said, I told you I ain't going to take that drug. And she says, good. He said, huh? She says, because I did some research when you left, and the hawthorn berry is doing exactly what I want your medication to do. So don't take your med because it will overdo it. So keep doing your hawthorn berry because it's working. It has the same benefit. I was reading something just recently, doing some research, and I don't remember who it was from, but it was from one of the, I just don't remember who it was. And they were saying that we have to re-explore antibiotics because the antibiotics, pharmaceutical antibiotics we're using right now are not working as they need to be. And we need to go back to the plant-based antibiotics to see what else we can do, because we're having the issue of antibiotic resistance. I remember I was walking down the hallway one time with my medical director, chief of staff, and he said, Walt, he says, I want to see every order for an antibiotic that's written. I said, Doc, I said, you're going to make some folks mad. And looking over his shoulder, what you doing? Because I got an answer. They're going to come to me and say, why are you asking for this? And he said, we had 30-some attendings. And he said, this is back years ago. This was probably in the 90s, mid-90s. And he said, we are using cannons when a BB gun would work. He says, we are going to have superbugs, and our antibiotics are not going to work. Well, he was about to retire out. He was well up in his he was up in his late 70s, just about to retire out. And he said, we got to get a hold on this. Well, we're now seeing he was exactly right. He saw what was going on. So if you want to learn how to use herbs, a great tool to use. How many of y'all have ever heard of the Physician's Desk Reference, the PDR? Well, that same company that makes the PDR for pharmaceuticals makes the PDR for herbal medicine. Great tool. And you read it just like you would your PDR for drugs. And it's a great book. It will show you what the herbs, it has pictures of them, just like it has pictures of the pills. It has the research on, what's the dosing, what's the contraindications, what do you use it for? A great tool. 4th edition is the latest. Buy it used. You can buy them used pretty decent. But that's a great tool that I use for. It's the same company that does the book for drugs. They do it for herbs, for herbal medicine. So when you make the extract, I like filling it about 50%, depending on which herb. You've got to chop it up like the hawthornberry. Hawthornberry is very hard. Yes?
Could you put that screen back just so I can see what all the herbs were first, please?
That in there? Yes, ma'am. And so you've got to bust it up, chop it. Don't put hawthornberry in a coffee grinder. You will break the blades. I did. And so they're very hard. And I didn't even try it with my Vitamix. I didn't want to break the Vitamix. That's a lot more expensive. So if you have a root or a bark, you want to shave it or chop it so you have more surface area that you can get those phytochemicals out of that plant material into the extract. And so you can put like here is Podiarco extract. Podiarco is phenomenal. It's one of my favorite herbs. It's the bark. We use it for prostate issues. It's like Pac-Man. It loves eating cancer cells. It's Podiarco. I use it for prostate. You can use it for just a whole list of stuff. Podiarco is very good. And this is the extract. So the nice thing about an extract is you can go on a trip. And so let's say if I had prostate issues, I could go and take 2 mLs once, 3 times a day, and I don't have to make a tea. Sounds better, right? Yeah. And so what you do is whatever your herb is, you put it in there. Depending on the herb, I start out at, say, 50%. And then you'll put your extract combination, which has the vegetable glycerin and the distilled water, and I pour it till it's an inch above the herb. Now, have you ever put water in beans to soak? You're going to have to keep watching it because it's going to soak them up. You're going to have to put more water. So you're going to have to keep putting more of the glycerin. That's why you start low, because you want to end up net when you're plumb saturated. You don't want to get higher than an inch from the top because you need to shake it good. And you want to have about an inch of just liquid above the plant material. So once you get used to your herb, and it's herb specific, the way they absorb, you may even start out down here. You may be able to start up here. You'll get used to it. Now, the first time I did it, I was sharing this morning, is like the first time I sprouted alfalfa. One of Mary Lou's friends came and they told her about sprouting alfalfa, and they only used X amount of alfalfa in there. And I thought, what a waste. Let's make some alfalfa. So I poured a whole mess of it in there. It busted the quart jar, the mason jar. That's how powerful the alfalfa seeds were. Well, so the first time I made a glycerin, I filled it up to about 80% full. Then I couldn't get that 1 inch above. And so then I had to dig it all out, and I made 2 quarts out of it. And so you want it to where you're able to have, like right here, you would want to have liquid about an inch above when you've netted out. So this would be perfect height if you had an inch here and an inch down. And then what you do is you shake it. And you shake it like that, and you put it up in the cupboard. And then that evening you shake it like this, and you turn it upside down, you stick it in the cupboard. And you do that twice a day, and you will go for 30 days. And then when you're finished, you just pour it into a kitchen strainer, let it drain all night long or drain during the day, whatever you want. And then once it's drained all out, I will take a little plastic bag, and I'll cut just a little tip off of here. Then I'll put my herb in there and squeeze it like you would milking a cow, or like squeezing one of them bags for cake decorating, and squeeze it till you squeeze all that liquid out, and then toss it away or put it in your garden. Yes, ma'am. If you wanted to, but it wouldn't be an extract. You want just the liquid. And so you really want to take the herbs out, because unless you want to eat that stuff. So it's better to take it out. Now you can get one of them highfalutin things that you can turn, like an apple press that you would press for apples. Well, they have herb presses that you can turn down, and it will squeeze it all out. And if you're into more of the barks and the roots, you definitely need to go that way. But I find that just squeezing out does a good job for me after I've let it drain that whole 12 hours or something. Now, you can make it go faster, and you can do it in a crock pot. Do the same process, you just set it in the crock pot instead of in the counter, in the cupboard, in the dark cupboard. You put it in the crock pot, in 3 days you're done. But you have to be careful. You're going to set that water to where the water is up to about here in that crock pot. And you turn the crock pot on low, because if it's too hot, it will scald it. And so you'll leave it in there, and if you have to be gone a long time, you don't want to do that. But you just keep that water up, and for 3 days, and in 3 days it's done. So it's a whole lot faster if you want to do it. Yes? That is correct. If you want to do it that way versus the cupboard. The cupboard takes 30 days, and the crock pot takes 3 days. Now that's an extract. A tincture is using alcohol. And I've just chosen not to use the alcohol. Mrs. White talks about the challenges of alcohol. She recommends not using it. And so I just choose not to use the alcohol. Yes, ma'am? No, I wouldn't want to drink that volume of DMSO. Yes. Okay, so that's how you make the extract. And so, like, here we got Podiarco, we got different things. Now, if you want herbs on steroids, if you want herbs that are super, super, super powerful, then you go to this process right here. Who has ever used lavender essential oil? The number one essential oil that's used in the world is lavender essential oil. The essential oil process uses either distilling or a pressing. Usually the citrus, they'll do a pressing process. But most of the time it's distilling. Here's how powerful it is. 1 drop of peppermint essential oil, you would have to drink 28 cups of peppermint tea. That's huge. The problem with essential oil is there's not enough of the herbs that they do essential oil. I'd love to have hawthorn berry. I'd love to have chaparral. And I just can't find, they haven't done those. So there's so much on my plate I want to do. I want to get into making essential oils that I can get that benefit. So your regular herb's going to last you 6-12 months. When you make an extract, you're looking at 2.5, 3.5 years. Essential oils will last you easily 3, 4, even 5 years because they're so potent. So this is lavender. And who's ever heard of vetiver? Vetiver. These guys right here are the best thing I have found for anxiety. 1 drop of lavender, rub it here. It transdermally goes in like a nicotine patch or a nitro patch. It goes into the blood. 1 drop of vetiver, rub it here, and then breathe it. Now it's going into the lungs, it's going to the blood. Normally, anxiety is gone within 2 to 4 or 5 minutes, normally within 2 minutes. It will calm you just plumb down extremely fast. And again, that's lavender and vetiver, extremely good. So that's the ways of doing it. And then this guy here is my 357 Magnum. Yes?
Do you use those together?
Yes, 1 drop of one and 1 drop of the other and rub it and breathe it. And then, do y'all know what this guy is? Oil of oregano. Oil of oregano is super, super powerful for the immune system. Oregano oil, be careful. It's hot. And so if you use that by itself, it can burn the tongue, the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach. It's like clove. It's hot. So you want to mix it 25% oil of oregano oil, and then 75% olive oil. Mix those together. I will do, start with 3 drops, and then I'll do 10 drops. And you'll get, if you tried 10 drops to start with, you're going to think I'm trying to key you. It's strong. Even mixed with, it's still strong. And then swallow it with water. Yes, ma'am?
You also put it in water instead of
Pardon? Oh, can you buy it that way?
No,
Oh, could you put it in water? It's a little more difficult because it's going to float on the water and then it still burn you. Because oil and water don't mix. Oil and oil mix good together. Yes. Now, Dr. Bob Martin. Who's ever listened to Dr. Bob Martin? Yes, I have. He's really good. I'm impressed with this guy. He's out, what is he, Colorado or something? And he's using this for his patients who have mold toxicity. And he's starting with 3 drops 3 times a day. He'll go up to 10, even 15 drops 3 times a day. And he's very successfully attacking mold toxicity in his patients. But it's just a great tool to use.
And it's always a great UTI related.
Pardon?
3 drops 3 times a day, 3 days.
For UTI?
No, mold.
Okay.
Put it in your feet capsule.
Okay, and oil of oregano. Excellent. All right. This is an extract. This is the best cough syrup I've ever found. It's called broncholine. And you can look at the side. It's got a whole mess of herbs on it. And they just have made an extract, and it's extremely good, just a cough syrup. It's an extract. So it would be like doing the Padiarco or like doing these guys. It's just an extract. So let's jump in and look at, yes? Yes, the broncholine. Yes, exactly. See, that's she. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Exactly. So let's jump into here. This is a very interesting study, clinical toxicology. This is 2015. When I did it back years ago here, I read every single poisoning that was in this book. I found only one that was herb related. And some family member had left one of the herbs, like I forgot which herb it was, essential oil. It was in an essential oil form, and an infant had gotten into it and they died. But there was not one other herbal problem. There was a lot from pharmaceutical, but there wasn't any. And, oh, here we go. I can find it. I've got it here. Where is it there? It was cinnamon. It was cinnamon oil. And it's just like if you leave Clorox open to the kids, it will kill them if they try drinking Clorox. Or other stuff in the bathroom. You got to put stuff away from infants. Well, it was cinnamon. That is the only one in that whole report. And all physicians are supposed to turn in anytime a person has a major poisoning issue, and they publish this journal every year. So we look here. God says, and God said, "Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed. It shall be for meat." But there's just all kinds where, there's David talked about hyssop. Isaiah talked about figs. And then Mrs. White talks about, let's see here, the God of nature directs the human agent to use natural remedies now. And she's talking about Hezekiah using the fig. The true method of healing the sick is to tell them of the herbs that grow for the benefit of man. And this is, again, and they can themselves administer the simple herbs if necessary. The use of certain herbs that the Lord has made to grow for the good of man is in harmony with the exercise of faith. And where this comes from, there was people then and there's people now who said, if you use herbs, if you use natural remedies, you don't have faith. You should only be able just to pray. It was happening then and it's happening today. No, God's given us both to work together. And here she talks about catnip. She's talking about hops, mustard. She's talking about, let's see here, again, the simple herbs. These old-fashioned simple herbs used intelligently would have recovered many sick who had died under the drug medication. And I'm not going to get into that. I think I made it clear the other day. I see a benefit for pharmaceuticals. There are things that we cannot address through natural, like totally figuring out type 1 diabetes, figuring out how to do anesthesia. And so I don't know if I have it here, and I don't. There's a statement where she said, and I mentioned it the other night, that as we understand physiology, we will use less and less dosing of medication until we use none at all. But it's understanding physiology. And so that's a promise, actually. And so if we haven't figured out type 1 diabetes yet, if we haven't found out thyroid issues to fully yet, then we just haven't researched physiology yet enough. Because I believe God has given us these simple herbs that we can study. We just have to study physiology more.
Can you go back to the screen that showed the catnip?
Catnip. That,
Right where you are, just a slide forward.
oh, where she talked about it.
Yeah.
There you go. A cup of tea made from catnip will quiet the nerves. Yeah, catnip's great. If your cat will share with you. It's great. Children, it's great for colic and it's great for croup. I get these grandmas come in and they're just all mad. I need me some catnip. That daughter, she ain't fixing that kid, and she'll come in and get some catnip. It works great for colic. It works great for croup. I'm saying croup. It works great for even helping the child fall asleep or even the adult fall asleep. Yeah. You've got hops. Hops is a great product. I have people who say, oh, I won't do hops. That's in beer. Well, no. It don't make you drunk. But let's jump in here. There's a sample of an herb cabinet. Alfalfa. Who's ever used alfalfa? Be careful though. Alfalfa now is a Roundup Ready product. So make sure that the one you get has been sprayed with Roundup. Alfalfa, the part of the plant to use, whole flowering plant, germinating seed. I will not go into the effects. We don't have enough time here. There's just so much to learn. But let's go into the uses. It's an antioxidant. It's used for asthma, bladder issues, hot flashes, increases breast milk. So it tells you there's something of a hormone issue there. Yes, I had this doctor. He came in and it was his second wife. She was a lot younger than him. And they had their first child and she could not produce much milk, breast milk. And he came in and says, I need something for my wife. And so we used fenugreek, we used alfalfa, and we used mother's milk, I think, also as a tea. That lady became a Holstein. I mean, she was producing the milk. And that doc comes back in and he goes, she's making too much milk. I said, just cut back. Well, when he had the next child, she got pregnant later on. He says, okay, we're doing it again. That worked so well. Let's get her going. It's amazing how many physicians come into our store and buy natural things, but yet they're prescribing the other to their patients. I have a bunch of physicians. I have a bunch of nurses that come in, and it's just quite interesting. So we get ladies that come in, and they adopt, and Mary Lou can get them to breastfeed. Isn't that cool? I mean, the nutritional benefits and the bonding issues. It's just amazing. And I remember back in school, my A&P teacher taught me that, he taught us in class that could happen, but we're doing it. I mean, it works. So it will increase breast milk, increase urine flow, inflammation. It's great for inflammation. Folks that have arthritis, many times will use alfalfa. It's a great anti-inflammatory. Kidney stones, just kidney health, lowers blood pressure, lowers blood sugar, lowers cholesterol. Now, where did I get this? The physician's desk reference for herbal medicine. So it's the same book that if you want to find out what drug to use, do I need to use Lanoxin? Do I need to use, whatever, based on this health issue? That same company that makes that book made this book, PDR, for herbal medicine. And that's where I'm gaining this information from. lowers cholesterol. Now, let me back up here. I don't want to use an herb just to mask and manage. So, if we're having cholesterol issues, do I want to just use an herb that lowers cholesterol? Or do I want to quit using the cholesterol? So it's really interesting. Boy, there's just not enough time. But let me share this. So let's look at a sink. You know I like illustrations. So you got the kitchen sink. And the engineer who developed your kitchen sink developed it where you can turn both spigots on, and the amount of water that comes out that hole will drain out the bottom hole, and it will not overflow, as long as you don't occlude it and clog it up with something. But if your husband comes over and starts pouring 5-gallon buckets of water in it, is it more water than what the engineer designed that hole to be able to drain? Yes. Now you have too much water. So God designed our body to make cholesterol. If you don't have cholesterol, will you die? Yes, you will die. You need it for hormones. You need it for just all kinds of stuff. So you got to have cholesterol, but at the right level. If you have too much, it's a problem. So why do we normally? Normally, yes, there's some outliers that the body's not working right, but most of the time, it's because we're dumping in extra cholesterol. When my cholesterol was 288 and I quit eating cholesterol, it went to 104 because I quit dumping extra cholesterol in. What foods have cholesterol? Anything that's got a mama. That's right. Anything that's got a mama's got cholesterol. And so if it's a cow, eating the cow or drinking the cow's milk or eating the cow's milk, you know, cheese and butter, and it's going to have cholesterol. If you eat the fish, it's going to have cholesterol. If you want the big dose of cholesterol, what is your highest dose of cholesterol? No? No? Well, yes, but what part of the pig? The brains. Yes. Pig brains and cow brains have your highest cholesterol. Oh, yeah, they do. I've seen people fight over them. Brains and eggs are huge in this neck of the woods. It used to be. Y'all from here? Do they still eat it? They still eat it where I'm from. Brains and eggs and gravy. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah, and so, pardon? And squirrel brains. Okay, so brains, if you want a good dose of cholesterol, just eat you a mess of brains. Shrimp has a pretty good amount too. And so just don't eat anything that has a mama, and your cholesterol will come down. Now, yes, you can use alfalfa, but let's go to the cause. Let's go that way instead of just having to keep taking alfalfa or whatever else you're using. Menopause, metabolic health, night sweats, osteoarthritis, for the prostate, protects the DNA, rheumatoid arthritis, and that's what my mama had, was rheumatoid arthritis. She found significant benefit by using alfalfa. Tooth decay, upset stomach, uric acid retention, whooping cough, weakness, chronic weakness. And here's the precautions. May reactivate lupus symptoms, may cause uterine stimulation or contractions. So let's go back. So that doctor wanted his wife to start early getting ready for the breast milk. Should she start real early on alfalfa? Not at all. So you got to use some horse sense here, y'all. You got to read and learn. Don't just do it. You got to do some research. And so if she starts the alfalfa too early, that baby might come too early. And so you got to watch what you're doing. And that's why getting that book or other books like that book, it will tell you the indications, the contraindications, what medications it may interact with, what other herbs it might. So it's good to be wise. It's the PDR, Physician's Desk Reference for Herbal Medicine. It's an excellent book. Astragalus, use the root. These are the effects. But let's jump into here. It's good for the adrenals. We see a lot of adrenal issues today, and I believe stress blows the adrenals. And how can we bring up astragalus, ashwagandha? those guys can beef up the adrenals. Adrenal fatigue can affect thyroid function. And adrenal fatigue can affect fibromyalgia. It's huge on fibromyalgia. Aging, cardiovascular, chemotherapy side effects. So if a person's having a lot of side effects due to the chemotherapy, I'll have physicians call me and they say they have their patients are having side effects to the chemotherapy. Is there a natural way to offset those side effects? Absolutely. And so I'll tell them about the astragalus. Chronic asthma, colds, diabetes, flu, free radical damage. Now let's go back again. Diabetes. Just like the fellow who took the basil. I find there's several basic things that cause type 2 diabetes. Type 1 and type 2 are totally separate. We're told today if they knew what they knew today, they would not have named them the same thing, diabetes. Type 2 diabetes, you're dealing with insulin resistance. And there's three things I have found. If I correct those three things, or God does the correcting, yeah, right? But I educate. If we correct the ideal body weight, if we correct the fat in the blood, which is clogging that insulin receptor, if we correct the inflammation that's causing that receptor not to work right, diabetes is going away for us. Yes, you can use astragalus, but let's get to root cause. Let's get it gone. You can get rid of it. Colds, diabetes, flus, free radical damage, herpes simplex 1, it builds the immune system, increases cardiac output. That's good. Increases sperm motility. Had a person come to me just Friday needing some help in sperm motility. What else helps with sperm motility? English walnuts. English walnuts also increase sperm motility. Inflammation kills tumor cells, lowers blood pressure, lowers cortisol. Is cortisol an issue out there? It sure is. Stress. My favorite tool to lower cortisol, what do you think it is? Oh, prayer, exercise. Exercise will pull that cortisol right down. It's excellent to lower cortisol. Yes, prayer is important. Absolutely. Lowers triglycerides. Memory enhancing. Helps with memory. Prevents plaque buildup. Now, if you want to address atherosclerosis, the fastest thing that I have found to do that. I had a lady come in from New York. Both carotids were at 75% occlusion, and in 3 months she was at 25% occlusion. That was good. But then I learned some new things that we can add to that. And recently I had a lady come in, husband's at 70% occlusion, and at 2 months he's at 5% occlusion, and at 3 months there was no occlusion at all, according to his physician. And what we use is lecithin granules. The first lady, I used it twice a day. I then found you could use it 3 times a day, a tablespoon, 3 times a day of lecithin granules. There is soy lecithin, and there is sunflower lecithin, based on which one you want to do. Most of the research is done on soy lecithin, but sunflower lecithin does great. So lecithin granules, 1 tablespoon, 3 times a day. And then the new thing I added, I read a study where they took soy lecithin and they added flax oil, 1 tablespoon twice a day. And so what happens is the flax oil brings down the point at which melting point, where it will break down. And so the combination of the two, we're getting rid of atherosclerosis even faster. And that's the fastest way. This will help with addressing plaque buildup, but the other two is the fastest that I have found. Regulates another great way to. What's another way you can lower plaque buildup? Esselstyn talks about it. A whole food plant-based diet. That's right. And no oils, no fats. Pardon? And greens 6 times a day. But Esselstyn will tell you it may take 1.5 years. Well, some people don't have 1.5 years. And so we got to hit it fast. And so let's attack it with I still believe in doing what Esselstyn says, but let's also add the lecithin granules in the in the flax oil. Yes, ma'am.
I have a friend who told me that she had diabetes, and she went on and she doesn't have diabetes anymore. Is that?
It could happen. Well, let me back up. An example. The last two different times I was in Rwanda, both ladies had a glucose of 400. Both ladies were on insulin and metformin. Both ladies were off insulin, metformin in 14 days. One's glucose is at 115, one was at 124. But we were still managing it based on the diet we had her on. So I wasn't happy with, I didn't say she was plumb out of the woods yet. What I encourage folks to do is stay on that program until they have ideal body weight. They've got an A1C of 5.6 or lower. They've got a morning fasting of 99 or lower, and they're not on any meds. Then I'll say, yes, the diabetes is gone. Because right now we're managing it with what she's eating. Yes. And so we've got to make sure we get to the point that we have that A1C, which is like a 3-month look at what's been going on, and making sure that's below 5.6. We got that morning at least 99 or less, and an ideal body weight. They need to do that too. So yes, you can reverse it doing that. So we have regulates calcium homeostasis in the heart, relieves insulin resistance. If you want to get calcium, if you have calcium buildup in vascular, or if you have calcium buildup on valves, heart valves, any idea how to remove it? K2. K2 will help or can get rid of that calcification. Stress, ulcers, increased urination. It's a vasodilator, and it's good for helping with wound healing. Precautions: consider discontinuing prior to an elective surgery. Why do you think? Here you go. The increasing bleeding. I was looking on the back of the page if I could see it there. So it can increase the bleeding. Caution to be taken with receiving immunosuppressive therapy, such as transplant patients, due to the immunostimulating properties. So again, we've got to use our smarts here. God gave us a brain. We're not an ant. And so he gave us a brain to use. So look at the research. There's a lot of research on herbs out there that has been done. A lot of research. And I like going to NIH. So the way you do it is you take the name of the herb, you take the scientific name of the herb, and you then go to National Institute of Health or PubMed, and then that's where you'll find it a lot easier. You can find all kinds of research in NIH or PubMed on herbal medicine. Bilberries, dried leaves, ripe or dried berries. Here's the effects and the uses. Atherosclerosis, that's clogged arteries. Bladder stones, bloating, it's a blood thinner. Cataracts, diabetic retinopathy, diarrhea, dysentery, eye problems. When did we start really learning about bilberries for the eyes? Correct. It's right. And what happened was one of the squadrons in England became aces very quickly, and they came to try to figure out why. Well, it was near home where they were, and one of the boys' mother would come and bring everybody bilberries in the food that she made. Well, I learned that part in jam. Okay, in jam. Well, I learned that story from a World War II veteran who was a pilot. He was 90-some years old, and he never had any eye problems because he kept using bilberries. He said the American troops started using bilberries, the pilots, because of what the RAF found. And he said he never had any eye problems.
One of the big things, too, is that the Germans, they started attacking them at night. And even though they had like 10 times as many planes, they had 3 or 4 times their losses. Well, the Germans couldn't see well, but the British troops could, because of the bilberry, one of the big things it does is it enables you to have good night vision, which that comes from the ability you can adjust from the light to the dark much quicker.
Yes. Isn't that cool? And that was figured out by the British back in World War II. Yeah. And then the Americans, according to this World War II pilot, told me the story that we started using it. Yeah, cool. Gastric ulcers, hemorrhoids, blood circulation, kidney function, myopathy, night blindness, platelet aggregation, Raynaud's. Y'all know what Raynaud's is? You know, you get ladies who are wearing gloves in the summertime. Another good one for Raynaud's is Yohimbe. Men use Yohimbe for increasing perfusion for ED. Well, it increases perfusion for ladies who have Raynaud's. Yohimbe, I can't spell, y'all. Yohembie, maybe? Something like that. See, I learned phonics in school, and phonics and Southern just don't match too good. Venous insufficiency, also wound care. Do not use leaves longer than 3 weeks at a time. The leaves lower blood sugar levels, so insulin-dependent diabetics should not take them in infusion without professional guidance. So, this last statement. So if it helps with diabetes, what's going on? If you're taking diabetic medicine and you're taking the bilberry, it can lower it too much. So what do? Work with your healthcare professional, cut back on the other, and just use the bilberry. Or just plumb reverse it, like what y'all do. Black cohosh. Now, yes? For Raynaud's, I would use 1 to 2 mLs. Yes, ma'am. No, those boys that he's talking about used it all the time. They just ate bilberries.
So it's not harmful, but they use the berries instead of the leaves?
Yes, they use the berries. So here's something important also. Again, you got to do your research. You can't just jump in here blind. So some herbs you can use all the time. Some herbs you don't want to use all the time. An example, golden seal, echinacea. You want to pulse it. 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Now, Dr. Watkins up in D.C. and his research, and another physician up there, and medical doctors up there, they're using golden seal and echinacea. They have found that they can go 30 days and they haven't declined too much, but they don't go past 30 days in their research. Most textbooks will say don't go past 2 weeks. And then you can pulse it and you're fine. Because it's not that it goes bad, it loses efficacy. It's just not as effective. But be careful with golden seal also. Golden seal used even pulsing for long periods of time, and it usually is around 6 months. You can, it's not a big problem, but a person can have depression. And so I always warn people who are getting golden seal to pulse it, but also be careful not even going long time. So this lady calls me. She says, Walt, I need to tell you something happened. Her husband got golden seal for something, and at a month and a half, he actually got suicidal. And she had to get rid of all the guns. And she stopped the golden seal, and it went away. So it can even be sooner than a month and a half. Does that mean you don't use it? No, just use it for the short period of time. I use golden seal a lot for and if we have time, we'll talk about it in the next session. But it's excellent for eye infections, excellent for strep throat, excellent for ear infections. I use it for my wound salve, that it kills any pathogen growth in that wound. So I'll use golden seal for those things, but usually I use golden seal for short-term periods because I don't want the negative effects long-term. Yes, ma'am? For hemorrhoid, just apply it topically, like external hemorrhoids. You can also do, you could do like a little enema of it to get in there for internal hemorrhoids. You could get, yes, you can, or you can get just buy bilberries, and you can make a make a little tea and apply to the external hemorrhoid, or a little like they'll use a little Fleet's enema, empty it, and yes. Black cohosh. I'm not a big black cohosh person. I found some other things that work better than black cohosh, especially for women's hormones. But here's some things. Here's the effects of black cohosh. Quite interesting, huh? But let's look also. So if I had this poor girl come in one day, and she was about this big, and she says, I want it out now. She says, I want black cohosh and blue cohosh. I want to drink a quart of each. I said, oh, no, ma'am, you're not. I won't sell it to you. I said, that's way too much. She says, I'm tired of this thing. I want it out now. That's poor girl. I'm going to do it. So I called a friend of mine, a very, very good midwife. I said, Kathy, talk to this poor girl. So Kathy talked to her and told her, no, please don't do what you're talking about. You have to be cautious. Yes, it could be used, but a little bit, and you pulse the two together, but you have to be careful. Blood circulation, bronchitis, epilepsy, fertility, hot flashes, so you can see it's a hormone issue, inflammation, kidney issues. My favorite herb for kidneys is corn silk. Corn silk is amazing for kidneys, and I use it along with dandelion root. Yes. Yes. So it is not uncommon for a person to come with kidney failure, stage 4, that they're ready. They're looking at. Actually, I have one lady. They're getting ready to actually put a shunt in her for dialysis, and in 3 months. Usually, it's 3 to 4 months. We can see renal failure totally reversed. And we use Dr. Kempner's program out of Duke University. We do the Duke diet, which is amazing. And that's how I found the Duke program, is from renal failure. Studying renal failure, found that Duke was having amazing results reversing renal failure, Duke University, by using the brown rice diet, which is 3 fruits and 1 cup of brown rice for breakfast, a nice big salad, and a cup of brown rice for dinner. And if they did supper, repeat breakfast, 3 fruit and 1 cup of brown rice. The other thing is the corn silk, the dandelion root, and then Dr. Ted Watkins taught me. Watkins has the best anti-rejection of kidney transplants in northern part of U.S. And Watkins taught me to use coenzyme Q10, 100 milligrams, 4 times a day, and activated charcoal. And he says, what is activated charcoal used for? Well, water purification. Then he says 3 caps twice a day. Be sure to not use it within 2 hours either side of a pharmaceutical or to soak it up. But he said it will assist the kidney in purification. Yes? I do. Not here. I can't. Send me an email and ask for it. And then the other thing is Watkins and both Kempner at Duke University, very, very huge on exercising, again, multiple times a day for reversing renal failure. Now, the other thing that Duke and Watkins were real strong on in renal failure is drink water. Now, if you're already in the system and you're that far into it, your nephrologist probably only has you somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200 cc's. So, you got to work with your nephrologist on that. So if you're locked in at that, I don't mess with that. But if he hasn't locked you in on that restriction, the kidneys need the water. Is he on dialysis? I had a 33-year-old female come in, She had been on dialysis since she was 15. Her potassium was crazier, her phosphorus was crazier, her creatinine was 11. In 3 months, and I don't know at what time this happened, but at 3 months later she comes in, phosphorus was normal, potassium was normal, creatinine went from 11 to 6 in just 1 month. Phenomenal. And she was on hemo. Pardon? On that program, yes. Yeah.
One more question on that. Does that program be used along with their insulin that they're taking, they continue taking?
Yes, absolutely. They just have to, if they're on, which that's another issue, the insulin, but if they're on insulin, they have, or even blood pressure medicines. Because, see, Kempner developed that diet for malignant hypertension. And so the rice diet will lower the blood pressure down to normal. And if you maintain hypertensive meds, it will push it too low. So you'll have to pull off. Work with your healthcare provider. Also, if it's a diabetic, he found that that diet helps to lower glucose, so you have to monitor the medication or you'll push too low because you're coming back into normal. Yeah. Well, y'all, this has been just to wet your tongue. There's so much, so many herbs, and let's look here and see if it will tell me. I have 475 slides, and I've done 44. So there is so much to learn on herbs, and just start out. And people say, well, how can I start growing herbs or whatever? Look at your current health needs. Look at your neighbor's health needs or health problems. Then go to books like the Physician's Desk Reference or other herbal books, and then look at what herbs are good for those health problems that will grow in your area. Now, we have an herb that grows in this area, and it grows the best in the world in our area, Southeast United States. It was introduced to us at the World's Fair in 1870s, I think. It was maybe Chicago, World's Fair. It's where the big Ferris wheel came in. Pardon? No. Kudzu. Kudzu grows the best in the world in the Southeast United States. Now, wives are very, what's the word I want to use for y'all? I can't think of the word. Pardon? Amazing. Yes, they are amazing. I have wives that come in and they'll get a multivitamin bottle and they'll dump it out in a cup. They will buy a bottle of kudzu, dump it in the multivitamin bottle, pour that other one in the oven and take it home, hide it. And then they hand it to the husband and say, here, honey, here's your multivitamin. Kudzu's lower the desire for alcohol 60 to 40%. And they cut their husband's consumption of alcohol down by using it. Now, in Asia, when you read about what they do in Asia, the physicians do in Asia, when they just can't figure you out, they will take kudzu root. They will dry it. They'll powderize it. They will make a gruel. And you eat a bowl of that gruel, like oatmeal, every day, every meal for 30 days. And their research shows that it heals all kinds of diseases. Most folks don't want to do that. So when I share with them that one, they're willing to do the juicing program I recommend to them. But we have the kudzu to do. I mean, it's not like we're in California. They don't have. So and kudzu, Mary Lou's made kudzu lasagna. It is not as good as her spinach lasagna, but it's food. I mean, kudzu grows 30 to 50 feet deep. The government paid farmers to grow it in the 1920s, 1930s for cattle.
That's why it makes something that's fertilized.
Oh, super nutritious.
All the minerals, they can chop it up, put it in a big blue barrel, full of water, let it sit for a couple of weeks, strain it out, put it on the plants, test fertilizer.
Who did that? Bob Jorgensen did that. Bob would do that. Yes, he did. He called it kudzu tea. So kudzu has a lot of nutrition. It's a legume. Because it goes so deep, it has a lot of nutrition. The cattle, it's good for cattle. They like it because it's not so susceptible to drought because it goes so deep. You can strip, Chinese will strip that last distal, that one, it grows a foot a day in the summertime, up to. And you strip that off, cut it, put it in a pot, and you can cook it like noodles. One missionary told me that when they saw Chinese women take a pot, bring the water to a boil, throw in a chicken, throw in a big old piece of root, and it's like throwing bone in there. You know how people cook bone for the nutrients? Well, they throw in the root, you got a lot of nutrients in the root, and that's what they feed their family. And so kudzu is a great tool. If we don't have food, we can go and use that for food, but it also has benefits. I have ladies that use it for weight loss. So we've run out of time, so what you do is you look at what grows well in your area, start growing some of those, start learning how to grow herbs. Mullein grows here. That's a great one to grow. What is the herb that Mrs. White said that every one of us are to drink every morning? Red clover. Yes. And so red clover kills cancer. Red clover is an excellent blood purifier. Red clover has excellent phytoestrogens. Red clover is just super healthy for us. And she recommended, that, just as we said, and I had a question this morning at breakfast. I didn't cover something. The other day, and it's my fault. When I talked about sipping your water, you still want to drink that water first thing in the morning, that we're told that we need to drink that, and flush out the system. That's the free flow. And so you still want to do that morning flush. And I did not mention that, and I failed to mention that. So that's how you can do some herbs and start growing some herbs for you. It's a great way when your neighbor is sick and you know what kind of health problems they have. You can go over and let's say they have some pulmonary issues, and you can go over, Miss Smith, I got something that's, maybe your grandma may have made before. Would you like some mullein tea? It's something you can give to her, like taking a loaf of bread. All right, well, let's jump into the next one. Let's take a real quick break, and we'll jump right into the next one, Old Mountain Remedies.